I find myself fighting against that sort of space of what they tell you you're supposed to do when you come to like social media, right? Like the formulated way of sort of creating content to create your hook, to introduce yourself, to do all those things when really right now all I want to do is tell a story. I guess I'm thinking about the concept of borrowed time. And I think part of the reason it comes up is because I see the level of love and compassion that people have for a specific person who I won't name on threads every now and then. And I love that he has spoken so openly about it, his own, how he struggles with his mental health and the sort of support that he finds himself needing. And while that is not necessarily my story, um, what I'm thinking about is this idea of borrowed time. Um, so before I get into it, hey, sunshine. I am Dr. Donna Oriolo, sex and relationship therapist in the Washington, D.C. metro area. I am the author of Drink Water and Mind Your Business, a Black woman's guide to unlearning the BS and healing self-esteem. And I have had like a beautifully, deliciously long therapy day. And I said I was going to show up here every single day, sort of like what Glow said. So that's what I'm doing. You get the energy I got. um, so when I was a child, I don't think I was not even one. I got meningitis. And it's one of those things where doctors swear up and down you have an ear infection. You have this, you have that. And my mom was dismissed, told it was an ear infection, was given some medication. She'll feel better in a couple of days. But at that time, I was an only child, firstborn, yay. Um, and what ended up happening is because I was constantly with a parent, they knew my rhythms. They knew me down bad. So they knew something was off. And she refused to go with that doctor's opinion and just went and got another one. That doctor is the one that discovered I had meningitis. Now, back then in those days, right? They were talking about like 87, 88, since I was born in November 87. They I was in a hospital for 10 days. And granted, while I was there, I don't remember none of this, right? Because, like, come on now, I was a baby. But it's one of those things that it became like a constant, not a story, but like sometimes you catch it, like in your parents' faces. And someone who knew you when they see you again for the first time in so many years, like my auntie Carla would. And she would just be like, I'm so happy you're here. Right. And hearing the story sometimes makes me feel like some of my life may be that which is on borrowed time. Um, and the thing is, if it had stopped there, maybe that would have been one thing, right? But like, it's like you know this story and it's you, but it's still disconnected from you because it's not your experience really. It's their experience that they told to you. I don't think I felt the poignancy of the idea of borrowed time until 2018. In 2018, look, I was a workaholic. If I'm gonna be 100% honest, I started this business, outright. I started my therapy practice in 2016 and I wanted it to succeed. I would also say 2016 is the same year I bought my house. 2016 is also the same year I graduated from with my PhD in human sexuality. So I'm saying that 2016 was a big deal, right? So I started a business. I graduated, started a business, bought a house, quick succession. And I didn't start paying myself until 2017 because, girl, I had to get some money up. And I had a job at that time. Also had a part-time job at the time. I forget how much I was doing until earlier this week. I was talking to a friend of mine and she was just like, it's because of you that I know I can, because I'm not doing nearly what you were doing when you were getting your PhD. And I was just like, girl, what was I doing? But she remembered I didn't. But 2018, I ended up in the hospital. See, what had happened was I was tired all the time, but I figure a girl is working a lot. Of course she's tired, right? I also had fibroids, which I knew, but I'm tired because I'm working, not because of fibroids, because the doctor at that time, he dismissed it, kind of like the old doctor dismissed my mama about the meningitis. Said it wasn't a biggie doing a ratty stick. So I sort of went with that. I was just like, all right, bet. Not a thing. Not a thing to be worried about. At least that was the way that it was sort of, handed on over to me. That it wasn't a big deal. So I went about my life. Heavy ass periods, fatigued all the freaking time. Got to a point where walking across the room was an exhausting experience. Um, but I also, you get an inkling and you feel worried. I had an inkling. I felt worried. So I decided that I needed to go to the doctor. So I went to urgent care and they was just like, I was just like, I don't know what's up, but my period starts tomorrow and a girl is feeling extra worried. So I need you to run all the tests. I'm tired all the time. I can't walk across the room. I feel lightheaded and dizzy when I get up. Hook me up, doc. Tell me what's up. So they run some tests or whatever. I'm there for a little bit and they're just like, ain't nothing wrong with you. You dehydrated. Now, mind you, at that time, I was drinking 1.5 liters minimum a day. Minimum. How do I know? Because when you buy the 1.5 liter bottle and you finish it every day, I was like, yeah, I'm drinking about 1.5 of these every day. Are you sure I'm dehydrated? They were positive I was dehydrated. The next day, period starts. Cool, cool, cool. My sister wants to go to the mall because at the time, Lord and Taylor was closed, and that means they was having a big what? Blowout sale. However, I didn't have the energy in me to go. So I declined to go. I was just like, I don't want to go. She was like, you can't leave me. You got to come to the mall with me. I got 3 younger sisters, and all of us were going to the mall along with my mom. So I was just like, if you come get me, I'll go. Mind you, to come get me from my house is out the way. It's out the way from where we're going. It makes no sense. The straight shot is to go straight that way. And I was just like, I'm not driving to the mall. I'm not driving to my mother's house. You come scoop me up or I'm not going. She really drove out her way to come pick me up and take me back home or take me to my mama's house so we could get in that car so we could go to the rest of the way to the mall. Before she got here, I decided, okay, your period is on. Your period is ridiculous. What are we going to do? We're going to be secure. So that when I say secure, I mean you get your period underwear with your reusable pad and you put an adult diaper over that. Then you put another period underwear to help secure it, but that period underwear also has to have a pad inside. So we're talking layers, hunty. So I was layered up, made sure that my butt didn't look like I was wearing an adult diaper, put on my jeans, and I was just like, all right, bet, let's go. So I transferred from my sister's car to my mother's car. We get to the mall. I'm tired. I'm always tired, but I was feeling it. And I could not, the amount of time it was taking me to walk across a simple parking lot, it took forever. And then to get in the mall, we had to walk through a store, then get to the mall, then walk. Like where we parked was prime parking for where we were going. And yet I was moving not that fast. And I was feeling so tired and my heart is beating out of my chest. By the time we got to Lord and Taylor, So mind you, the drive to my mother's house, 20 minutes. The drive from my mother's house to the mall, 30 minutes. The time it took to walk in, uh, let's go with like 10, 15, 20. I was walking slow. The point is, it's less than 2 hours since I put on all those pads and left my house. I've got blood down to my knees. I have bled out of everything and I am exhausted. And all I want to do is cry and sleep. Well, going to the hospital that day, they were just, which was a lucky thing, I want to say, because I would have stayed at home and probably bled out. At least according to the doctors, that's what would have happened. I would have been at home because they weren't sure how I was conscious um, at all when I got there. I was exhausted, but they were not sure how I was conscious because I had lost that much blood over the course of several months. And I was just so used to being tired that I was just like, okay, right? Like, this is my everyday. Of course, I'm used to this. And when they told me, like, they ended up giving me like 3 bags of blood because I didn't have any, and a big ass bag of iron because I didn't have any. And they kind of look at you a little bit like you're some sort of a medical miracle, when really I was a story of medical neglect. And the idea that I could have died at my house really impressed upon me again what borrowed time means, right? Like this feeling like, oh shit, that was some borrowed ass time stuff. But while we started some sort of reclaiming of my life after that, I still ended up having a surgery in 2019 to correct the problem, to remove the fibroids. And I was scared because, Black woman comes in, sometimes she doesn't come out. It's kind of hard to trust the medical industrial complex with your body, with your unconscious body, where there ain't much else that you could do. Then I had debilitating anxiety in like 2020, 2021, and another surgery last year because the problem started to reappear again. Um, Through this, particularly after that first hospitalization, I was just like, yo, what do you do with borrowed, if you're living on borrowed time, how do you live? What do you do? How do you behave? How do you show up? And I had decided I needed to show up, I needed to be brave a little earlier, right? Because it just felt like everything could be gone in a second, that I could be gone in a second. That and with everything that's going on outside, right? That with fascism and the environmental concerns and the rich wanting to be richer because they're never satisfied, because hoarders are almost never satisfied. Like, at that time I kept thinking, but what are you going to do? Like, how do you want to live? Cuz being a workaholic could have been my end. Like, I delayed a surgery I needed. That could have been my end. I decided to put all of my trust in someone else, despite the fact that my body was telling me something else twice. I needed to start taking accountability and responsibility for my own life. And I was just like, well, if you die tomorrow, what do you want? I want to have experienced the goodness that this world has to offer. I want pleasure on purpose. I don't want accidental pleasure. I don't I don't want purposeful work and accidental good times, because I'd hurt my body. I'd not heated my body because I was doing purposeful work, right? I was, at that time, I want to say I was saying like 20 people a week, therapy, right? Doing speaking engagements. 20, what was it? 2016, 2017, 2018, never home. I was never here. My real first slowdown happened because of COVID. I had that surgery and I didn't even allow my body to fully recover and rest before I was up and working again. I think I took a week or two off. And then I had a thing with this company. And then I was just like, oh, I got a training over here. I got to travel for this training over here. A girl was trying to, like she's trying to catch the bag, right? Like I'm trying to get this money. And then COVID happened and I had to stop. I had no choice. We all had to stop because they basically say, stay your dumb ass at home. Go breathe that air and go be scared. And the debilitating anxiety of all the things that I was using work to cover up because in many ways I didn't have a lot of pleasure in my life and I decided that I was going to take pleasure in my work, which is fine, right? Like if the work brings you pleasure, yeah, right? And the work did bring me pleasure. But I was just like don't I'm a human being. I'm a human being who is always doing. I'm not a human doing. I'm a human being, and I wanted to be a human. And for me, at some point, I was just like, life has to have more to offer us than work and death and taxes. It has to have something more to offer. So for me, it was stop allowing my life to be rooted in the bag and started making my life be rooted in pleasure, to seek it on purpose, to practice it like it was the last thing I needed to practice. And the thing is, I recognize myself as a little bit of a hypocrite, right? Because the therapy I was doing would also remind people of that they're a human being, that they're not a human doing, while ignoring that message for myself. It would remind them to seek pleasure on purpose while ignoring that message for myself. So it's like, oh, so you could teach it, but you can't live it. Oh, that's wild. That's wild behavior. So I decided something needed to change. And I did a year where I just focused on what felt good, right, safe, and sane for me. I focused on pleasure. And I'm still focusing on pleasure. I I built it into my schedule now to have a daily pleasure practice. And what I've learned is that I'm better able to tell when something is off in my day, in my week, in my month, because I have a pleasure practice, because I know what feels good in my body. I also know what doesn't. Because I know what serves me, I also know when something is awry. It is easier to detect when something is off because I have a pleasure practice. And then I think back to those times where I was working the way I was working and why was I working the way I was working? Why was I ignoring what my body was asking for? Rest and pleasure, rest and pleasure. Why was I ignoring it? And what it comes down to is that sort of like you in a like in the way that we're taught this, we're taught as though like our entire lives are intended to be of service to someone else, usually a boss who wants you to do or to create or to whatever for the company. And they don't really know to serve the purpose either because they're doing the same thing, and their boss and their boss and their boss all to service somebody. So we give away 40 plus hours a week of our time for someone else's goal, and so that clothes, a shirt on your back, a roof over your head, food in your belly. Yes, and words. And I'm just like, there's got to be a different and better way to live, that this can't be it. It can't just be work, taxes, and death. Like it can't. And why I come back to borrowed time is that we don't even know how much time we have. And so many of us feel guilty when we're not being productive, when we're taking a break, when we're having a rest. We have our guilty pleasures. And it certainly makes me wonder how many of us are trying to practice pleasure on purpose and with purpose. How many of us are even getting the full benefits of living a more pleasure filled life? Because you know what you are? More creative. You have more cognitive agility. You're able to understand when something is awry in your body better and thus able to do something about it. Like there is a pleasure benefits package. Um, at least that's the way I've been thinking of it now, and ended up being the way that I sort of frame it in my book. I talk about the pleasure benefits package and literally all of the benefits, cognitive, as well as physical benefits that you receive just from having a regular pleasure practice. And then I still remember that a lot of us don't even know how to access it. That we still feel guilty if we have fun 2 or 3 days in a row. We start feeling like, "Ooh, I better relax. I gotta go be productive." And I just wonder, what would it be if we treated pleasure like it was our damn job? That's what I wonder. So back in 2023, maybe I did my first retreat. I did the Plan to Orgasm retreat, PTO, because you got to use PTO so you can PTO. And I think that thing let me see just how close I could get to experiencing my pleasure while working. One, but it's like when you get called to do something and you wasn't sure that you was going to do it anyway. This is one of those moments. And I had that retreat and then I never did it again. I didn't do it again. It was a beautiful singular experience and then I got scared of doing it again. I went right back into being fear based and chasing bags and chasing the more immediate bag, and because that retreat doesn't really make nothing, right? It's something that I do and or something that I did because I like the idea of black women in a space and having a good time. And so I'm going. I planned another retreat, but this one with a completely different set of group. A different set of people. I mean, and I call it out of office. And I am doing this with a friend of mine, and this one is for sexuality professionals. I thought, okay, we gonna see who all wants to go, and then maybe we do an all call to fill the space so that we can all just go and have a good time. It never made it off of the initial posting because we were full immediately, and I was just like, wow, that's amazing. um and I mean, the whole purpose for me, the real purpose, is I want to see more Black people, more Black femmes, more Black women in a space of pleasure and joy. Because I think that the world has given us quite enough pain. I think that a lot of us, in many ways, have felt like we've been on borrowed time. Um, and sometimes maybe scared of fully inhabiting our lives, stretching into it, really feeling into it because we're waiting for the other shoe to drop. But the other shoe is going to drop. But did you have pleasure in between? That ends up being my question. Did you have pleasure in between? And what would you do? What would your life look like if you focused more on pleasure instead of wondering if you were on borrowed time? If we stopped worrying about the next bad thing and just had a good time in between the bad things? Because bad things are going to happen. I know that. I just gave you some bad things to happen. And would you have regrets? Would you have regrets about the way that you spent your life? When you get to the gates, or when when they weigh your life against the feather of Ma'at, wherever it is that you believe that we go when we leave here, will you have been satisfied with the way that you did this? Would you be able to say that you experienced the highs of this life as much as some of us know that we have experienced the lows? That ends up being my question. I said I wasn't going to be shy about it. So I'm inviting you to learn more about PTO if that's something that you feel like you would like to go to. I am doing it again this October. I feel like I've been like halfway stepping in it, saying it, but not really committing to it. Um, there's always a limited number of spaces, but that's because of the experience that I'm trying to curate, learning pleasure on purpose, where we work on mindset, but you'll also work on skill set. So I guess I want to leave you with, if it's all borrowed time and we started from dust and we'll end at dust, how will you cultivate a pleasure practice somewhere in the middle? What will you do so that your life is beyond working, taxes, and death? All right. I'm tired. I'm going to go eat this dinner. This has been your episode of the Daily Donna, and I'll return again tomorrow. Bye.